So I wanted to do a video in defense of Jeffrey Epstein. Now, what I want people to understand, this is not in defense of Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. This is in defense of Jeffrey Epstein's ideologies and what Jeffrey Epstein funded. The Jeffrey Epstein Foundation funded a lot of good, important research in the fields of mathematics and science, particularly experimental physics. Jeffrey Epstein was also a transhumanist. People may have heard me speak about transhumanism at length on this channel. Transhumanism is essentially the use of technology. Okay, it's the use of technology to facilitate the achievement of basically surpassing human frailty. So you're utilizing technology to surpass human frailty. And this can be explored in many ways. Even things like water generation, like what water generation is where you take the water out of the atmosphere and create drinkable water for people, like in areas like, in places like Africa, South America, etc. You can make drinkable water for people that don't have drinkable water out of thin air, literally. Well, thick air, technically, I guess you'd say. Now, I don't know if Mr. Epstein had funded any of that, but he did fund important scientific research and mathematics research, particularly in the field of physics. Now, what's important to understand is transhumanism. Now, what I like, the one good thing about Jeffrey Epstein is, although it didn't stick, it did bring to the forefront the idea of transhumanism. This idea of using technology to surpass human frailty. Now, there are a lot of popular transhumanists, okay? My favorite is, of course, Maria Konovalanko, who worked at the Buck Institute on Aging, which is in San Francisco, to research aging, to research the processes of aging and how to reverse the processes of aging and things of that nature. She's a brilliant woman. Now, there will be links to various transhumanists as well as the things that Jeffrey Epstein's foundation did. And I think it's important that, number one, this is not clickbait. This is real. This is a real video in defense of Jeffrey Epstein's funding of these important scientific and mathematics research projects, you know what I mean? Now, what people need to understand also, like another big supporter, like some of the transhumanists that you'll see mentioned in the description that you should follow the links to what they're about, are people like Ray Kurzweil, the guy that wrote The Singularity is Near, and other books, but also has made the flatbed scanner that helps blind people read. He's done a lot of things, exoskeleton type suits that help the paraplegics to walk. He is a brilliant man that has done a lot to help humanity. He's also one of the people at the forefront of supplementation, and he wrote a couple books with Terry Grossman. Fantastic Voyage, Live Long Enough to Live Forever, by Ray Kurzweil and Terry Grossman, and Transcend by Ray Kurzweil and Terry Grossman. I did not do reviews of those books yet. I do plan on it. I think that everybody should read both of those books if they're interested in life extension. Not necessarily just those books, of course. You should read as much as you can get your hands on and get ideas that can be actionable. But I think Kurzweil and Dr. Grossman have a good idea. Right now I'm actually reading, along with Dr. Duke's book, My Awakening, I'm also reading Dr. Grossman's book, which is The Baby Boomer's Guide to Living Forever, which seems to actually predate the other two books. He seems to have been at the cutting edge before Kurzweil was, which is interesting because Kurzweil is usually at the cutting edge of everything. My point is that transhumanism is important. I don't call myself a transhumanist. I call myself a life extensionist and a U.S. progressive more than anything else. Okay, a Teddy Roosevelt-style progressive. I believe in the implementation of technology to transcend human frailty and to make society work more smoothly. That's where I'm coming from, okay? Similar place to Mussolini, similar place to the Big H, okay? the implementation of science to make things run more smoothly, okay? In public policy and also in one's private life, people should be implementing science and technology wherever they can. I support DARPA, okay? People might not know what DARPA is. As far as I'm concerned, some of the only legitimate agencies in the United States government are things like DARPA and the National Institute of Health and things of that nature that are putting forth effort to transform reality as we understand it. DARPA was responsible for the internet. Everybody wants to talk about how evil DARPA is and how evil the military is and how evil this is and how evil that is. If it wasn't for DARPA and it wasn't for the military, we wouldn't be talking to each other on the internet right now. You wouldn't have these idiotic shows that are making a mint on my videos, re-uploading my videos and picking apart what I say. That wouldn't exist without DARPA. So the military is not evil. DARPA is not evil. It leads to cutting-edge research, which leads to cutting-edge breakthroughs in medicine. A lot of these things, they translate right over to better the lives of U.S. and global civilians. They basically help the civilians of the world by the implementation of the technologies discovered by DARPA. Now, what people like Kurzweil and Epstein, now I want to be very, very clear, Epstein had, as far as I know, had no connection to Ray Kurzweil. But what I'm saying is people like Ray Kurzweil and people like Epstein have used their money to fund important research. Kurzweil more so, because Kurzweil has interests that are more toward helping humanity. Kurzweil is like a great visionary that wants to save humanity with the use of technology. He is a true benevolent transhumanist, I believe. Epstein is more of just a transhumanist, but he still had the goals of saving humanity from itself, its own idiocy, its own implosion upon itself through its own stupidity. And that's why I think it's highly important that people understand this. I believe that Kurzweil and Epstein were probably believers in the Jewish version of cosmotheism. Cosmotheism, of course, is Dr. Pierce's religion, but there was it was created by a chemistry professor in Israel. There's a Jewish version of that called cosmodeism. Now, one of the primary differences is in cosmotheism. In cosmotheism, we're transcending, humanity transcends to become God. In cosmodeism, you're giving God consciousness through creating a artificial intelligence type thing. Whereas, as I said, in cosmotheism, it is humanity which gives God consciousness. It gives the Creator consciousness through its existence, through humanity's existence. In cosmodeism, they are creating a vessel to give God consciousness through this type of cloud-type, artificial intelligence-type thing where there's a universal mind, so to say. It's very Chardinian in many ways, but my point, like the noosphere, my point is that everybody needs to start to understand what transhumanism is, because if this species is to have a future, it will be embracing post-humanism. Not necessarily transhumanism, but post-humanism. Humanity will either evolve or it will cease to exist. Like Nietzsche said, you can either become the Übermensch or you can become the Untermensch. And humanity is slowly, and actually in some cases, like in the West, drastically leaping off the cliff above the abyss, going down into the abyss of the Untermenschen. Okay? So one must understand that if we are to become the Übermensch, we must embrace these technologies, we must embrace these outlooks that are so greatly seen as elitist when they're not. There's nothing elitist about saving the world. There's nothing elitist about implementing technology so everyone can eat. There's nothing elitist about implementing technology so everybody has clean water to drink, so everyone has a high IQ, so everyone is doing well instead of just some. And that's what I think is important to understand. And that's why it's a good thing that these billionaires, these tech billionaires, and some of these people are actually throwing their money into the game and trying to bring about a transformation of society for the benefit of everyone. And that's all for this video.